Hi, I'm Susan, and today I'm going to talk to you about how I choose the quotes that I use in my calligraphy. And just a little bit of background, I started over 40 years ago. I started with calligraphy. Did calligraphy very seriously for about 10 years, shifted to handmade books, artist books for over 20 years, and the last 10 plus years have been a combination of the two. I've come back to calligraphy to a certain degree. When I first started, I had no other art background, and I'm just going to share with you a piece that I did from the very early days. And this is from The Dark is Rising by Susan Cooper. And so I would pick just things that I loved and write them out. And I was an English literature major, which kind of gave me, I think, a little bit of a leg up in that department. And what I really liked, and my appreciation of words, I think, was very helpful in learning calligraphy, because it can be frustrating at the beginning. There's a lot to learn. There are times when you just don't seem to be getting it. And rather than get super frustrated, there was always a deep pleasure in writing the words that I loved. So that kind of would override things, and it was easy to keep going. So I went from just straightforward writing things out, and kind of the next phase I did a lot of work where I was copying design elements from manuscripts. And I was, again, using kind of big, passages of things, a whole poem perhaps. And speaking of poems, this was kind of the next, and I spent a lot of my calligraphy time doing work in this idea. This is a poem by my friend Paul Marion, and it was about skating, and I'm trying to echo everything. When I was doing calligraphy then, I looked at my job was in service of the words, and I needed to add to them, to present them in a way that gave the viewer the deepest, broadest experience of them. And I started to get kind of frustrated with that, and I didn't exactly understand. I didn't know exactly what it was, but I was feeling very restless. And Jenny Hunter Grote, the late Jenny Hunter Grote, who is, I consider to be my mentor, she talked about that there were two kinds of artists. There were interpretive artists and there were originating artists. And her examples were Margot Fonteyn, the ballerina, as an interpretive artist, and Martha Graham, the choreographer, modern dancer, as the originating artist. And when she said that, it was like light bulb went off. It's like, this is what I'm frustrated about. I want to be the originating artist. I don't want to be the interpretive artist anymore. And so through various things, that led me back to books and kind of away from calligraphy for over 20 years. And then when I came back as a different person, or a different artist. I mean, I was more mature as an artist. I was more comfortable I didn't need to interpret somebody else's words. And I kind of look at it now that I am taking the quotes I choose, the words I choose, to build a kind of a worldview. And that worldview is one that there is darkness, there can be pain, there can be difficulty, and that's a given, and that's there. But there's also hope and comfort and strength to be found in words. And so that's sort of what I'm looking for. So I don't like things that are I won't pick anything that's too kind of sappy. I won't pick anything that says, oh, the word, everything's great and wonderful. I want something that has that acknowledgement of the kind of back and forth between comfort and difficulty. And one of the things I will just mention, okay, so what I wanted to talk about next were two things of the work I'm doing. One, I'm doing a lot of, I have done in the last, say, 7 years, a lot of larger work. So this is a banner that I think is 4 feet wide by 6 feet long. But the letters are big, so one of the things, I'm looking for things that are not too long, that can fit on here. The other thing is, when I did this, I made an intention of making sure that half of them, there were 10 quotes, half were by men and half were by women, because it's very easy when you with the way that men's everything is kind of much more historically present, that sometimes you have to do some searching for women's things. But so I wanted half and half. I wanted it to be something that would fit on the page, that they would all fit, and that would give you this idea of, I kind of envisioned it like you're standing in the supermarket, or you're just somewhere where you're kind of adrift, and here's some words that you can kind of hook onto. The other things, since the pandemic, I have not been working big. I have been working much smaller. I've done a lot of little things that are smaller. And this is from Seamus Heaney. This is just a little piece. Done a lot of little things with sparkly, with calligraphical crystals, which make it sparkly, which I felt like kind of in the darkness of the pandemic, it was really nice to have something that was, that shone. And this line, it's a line from one of his poems, and it's also on his gravestone: walk on air against your better judgment. So my goal is to start to do some bigger work again. And the one thing I do want to mention before is I'm a stickler kind of about finding where the source of the quote is. So there's a lot of quotes out there online that you can find, but a lot of them, if you just see a quote, if you go to any of the quote kind of aggregator sites, except WikiQuote, which does require the source. But a lot of these other things, they're misattributed. They're wrong. Sometimes I'll read something that's like, that just doesn't sound right. Look it up. And the website I like to look it up most is called Quote Investigator. I'm not sure exactly, but it's Quote Investigator. And not only does it tell you whether it's a real quote or not, but it researches the process, which is really interesting. So I hope that this was useful to you if you do calligraphy and you want to, kind of build your sense of what you're choosing to write. And I will just mention too that I do have a bookstore on my website with some of books with quotes that might be of interest to you. And I hope to see you next time. Bye-bye.